This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. Between two-factor authentication, strong passwords, and a VPN, you try to be in control of how your info is protected. But many other places also have it, and they might not be as careful. That's why LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second for threats. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast for 40% off. Terms apply.
The Stone Zone. Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Breaking news.
And this is Rita Cosby in for my buddy Roger Stone tonight. And boy, another busy news night. And what is Ghislaine Maxwell, who is the accomplice to Jeffrey Epstein, what is she telling the Trump Department of Justice? That's the big question tonight. Because literally just about a minute ago, this statement came out from Todd Blanche. And he is the Deputy Attorney General who is right underneath Pam Bondi. And he went down to meet with Ghislaine Maxwell, who is the person who's said to be the Rosetta Stone, the person who is said to know all the details about Jeffrey Epstein. And he just put out this statement about a minute ago, and it says, quote, "Today I met with Ghislaine Maxwell, and I will continue my interview of her tomorrow. The Department of Justice will share additional information about what we learned at the appropriate time." So that's very interesting. First, they're going to share information at the appropriate time. So what did they learn? This is somebody who knows all the details surrounding Jeffrey Epstein. Not only was she sort of his travel agent, figuring out when he flies, where he goes, she also apparently kept track of the records of who he met with and was also one of the procurers, according to a lot of the women. Now, Ghislaine Maxwell says she's innocent. But a lot of the women have specifically named Ghislaine Maxwell and said, she's the one who came to my school, or she's the one who groomed me to do certain things to Jeffrey Epstein. She's the one who groomed me to bring in other girls. So this is not, by at least the witness's account, not a good person whatsoever. But she could hold the keys to the kingdom. And I think it's important that the Trump DOJ is meeting with her for a lot of reasons. And the fact that they are just putting out the statement that after meeting with her for several hours today, they met with her at the U.S. Attorney's Office in Florida, that apparently she is going to be meeting with them again tomorrow. So that's a very, very big deal. Also, her attorney just put out a statement saying she answered every question and that she never invoked a privilege. So it sounds like she is cooperating. So is the dam about to burst open in the Jeffrey Epstein case? Because she can say, yeah, I want a reduced sentence. I want a deal. I want something like that. But they're not just going to take a deal with somebody who has nothing to offer. So I think this is a very pivotal moment and a deeply important moment. Because guess what? If she can come out and clear the air about President Trump, I think it's a good thing for the Trump administration. Get it out there. Yeah, he knew her. Yes, he knew Jeffrey Epstein. There's no question. They were friends. They knew each other, but he also kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago because he crossed the line with all these young girls. So I actually feel like there's nothing going to be there about President Trump at the end of the day. And let's see what she's got. Because boy, oh boy, if he can throw all the information out there and say, here's what Ghislaine Maxwell said, here it is. I mean, if she's going to say, oh, I didn't do anything wrong or I didn't do that, then you got to believe that all these other people are lying. So we got to see what information they have on her, what they can use as leverage, and certainly what she has to offer to be able to expose maybe some of these others who have indeed done some very nefarious activities. There is a lot of stuff. By the way, and also remember the Wall Street Journal report about that birthday card from President Trump? Well, now the Wall Street Journal is apparently reporting that that birthday album also included a letter from President Clinton. So if that's the case, you know what? President Clinton wrote happy birthday, something funny to Jeffrey Epstein. Obviously, they're saying that President Trump wrote something. So far, I think it's all a big nothing burger. But I do think if something happened to these young women, and Jeffrey Epstein clearly was one bad person, and they say Ghislaine Maxwell was the facilitator, I think we need to know the truth, and it needs to get out there. And especially because a lot of people in the media are not even covering anything at this point close to the Russia hoax. You got yesterday Tulsi Gabbard coming out and saying, I want to blow the lid off everything. Here's all the details. Here's all the information. And all the questions were, what about Jeffrey Epstein? What about Jeffrey Epstein? What about Put it to bed. President Trump is a master at PR. This may be what he knows at the end of the day, one big nothing burger, as I say. And maybe he just kind of wants to get it out there. Let's get the media all riled up. And then at the end of the day, they're going to have egg on their face. This could be one big PR orchestration. I do believe he's not going to be found to have anything nefarious tied to Jeffrey Epstein. And the fact that he knew him, so what? But I do think if indeed Ghislaine Maxwell has information about those who committed crimes with Jeffrey Epstein against young women and others, guess what? I say throw the book at them. So maybe justice is coming soon, guys. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. And you are listening to Rita Cosby filling in for my friend Roger Stone. Meanwhile, here is Alan Dershowitz. Remember, he used to represent Jeffrey Epstein. He knows Ghislaine Maxwell. And here is what he had to say. We talked with him earlier today on Katz and Cosby, and I wanted to play this for you because he says here is sort of what needs to come about for Ghislaine Maxwell to cut a deal.
In the end, she will ask for time served. She's already served 5 years, which is more than anybody has ever gotten for this kind of a crime. And I think she can provide a lot of information. Now, people will say, well, why would you believe her? That's not what they're looking for. They're looking for her to provide self-proving information, documents, travel records, photographs, which she might have in England or in various places that she's lived. So she's not going to be valuable just for her own word. It'll be valuable to help lead to other things. But in the end, it's corroboration and her providing hard physical evidence in addition to her word.
And that really is the key, hard physical evidence. What can she do to prove that she has information that is worthy of, quote, her cooperating with the Trump administration to bring the perpetrators to justice that would prove certain things or disprove certain things, whatever the case is, but hard evidence as opposed to just her testimony, because people will say, this is someone who has said she's been innocent all along. A lot of people say they do not believe her. But yet it sounds like she's singing like a canary because the word just coming out that Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche is saying that he's going to be meeting with her for a second day. You think about it, you can get a lot of information out of somebody in a few hours. And apparently they spent many hours together today, and it will continue tomorrow. So here's a little more from Professor Alan Dershowitz of what he thinks may come about or may not come about.
So in my experience, I know her. I've known her for years. I don't know her well, but I know her. I know her family. I think she could provide useful information, but, it's going to be disappointing. There are no smoking guns here. There are no people, famous people, who are in the files like Donald Trump who did anything wrong. We know that they knew each other. We know they were at events together in Palm Beach and in New York. And we know hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of other people who were with Jeffrey Epstein. I used to go to seminars at Harvard, where Nobel Prize winners, where the president of Harvard, the provost of Harvard, the deans of the schools would sit around with Jeffrey Epstein. He would kind of conduct the seminars, talk about evolutionary psychology. I remember meeting the guy who decoded the genome, who I had never met. I had been at Harvard with him for 20 years. We had never met. Epstein brought us together. So the fact that there's a name in the file doesn't mean anything. I mean, there are his lawyers, their names are in the file, there are his accountants, there are his, other friends who had nothing to do with this. Now, if there were people who were on the island when improper sexual conduct was taking place on the island, that might be relevant. And the people who would know that might be the authorities in the Virgin Islands.
And Professor Dershowitz says he knows that island. He, of course, says he was not involved in any nefarious activity, but he describes what he saw.
Remember, you couldn't fly directly to Epstein's Island. You had to fly to St. whatever, one of the cities there, and then a boat would come for you and would take you to the island. My wife, my daughter, who was then 10, and me and Professor Michael Porter of the Harvard Business School, his wife and his relatives, we all went to the island for dinner before the island was built up, when nobody was there. The only people on the island at that time were a couple of men who were workers and one massage guy, but there were no young people on the island. But later, the island became some place where apparently there were improper activities. And so if you can get the names of those people, and I suspect Elaine Maxwell knows who was on the island, because I think she probably arranged for the transportation, and that would be relevant. But you're not going to get any smoking guns, I don't think.
So even if there's no smoking gun or anything pointing to anybody famous, I still say if she can provide information about others, I don't care if they're famous or not. If there's somebody who abused young women and she is aware of that information, throw it out there. Make them famous, make them famous when they get arrested, and thrown in jail. So the fame doesn't really affect me. It's more justice, because that's really what I care about. And listen to this. And I've said this to you guys. And I know Roger feels the same way, that there are so many questions about Jeffrey Epstein's death. Who knows? Maybe she has some interesting information in that arena too. I mean, there's a lot of things. You never know. You got to imagine there's a lot of security around her. Who knows? I'm just saying that I never have felt comfortable with the idea that Jeffrey Epstein suddenly killed himself, and that the guards just happened to fall asleep and the video just happened to drop out at certain places and case closed. There's just way too many questions with that. And here is Ian Maxwell. This is really interesting. He is the brother of Ghislaine Maxwell. And he was on Piers Morgan, and he said he also has some questions about whether or not Jeffrey Epstein was killed. And again, this is the brother of Ghislaine Maxwell, who's actually very close to her. So does he know something maybe that needs to come out, or does she relayed to him?
You say yesterday that you were in lockstep with the administration on the Epstein files, but it doesn't seem that you're in lockstep with all of your House Republicans. Thomas Massey just saying in the past hours this is going to come back and bite them. And
that's somebody there whispering in the background. I bet there was a lot of whispering, by the way, when everything happened with Jeffrey Epstein. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. We'll get to that in a moment. But what he essentially said, guys, was that he doesn't really believe that Jeffrey Epstein killed himself. He also brought up Dr. Michael Baden, who is the foremost forensic pathologist. And what happened in that particular case, Dr. Baden did the autopsy, and he determined this was not for the state. This was a private autopsy, but he made sure that he was there on behalf of the family. And I know Dr. Baden. He's done some of the biggest cases in American and world history. And he came out and said there is no way that those bones would have been broken in the neck, the hyoid bones and other bones, if indeed he strangled himself, if he killed himself by strangulation. He said it takes such incredible force that it would have had to have been somebody strangling him, not someone trying to kill themselves. And other people who've been in that cell, we've talked to people, or we've seen interviews, I should say, of people who have been in that cell, and they say that there's nothing, they can't even imagine it either. They say that there's just no way, given the way the cameras are, given the way of what's in that cell physically to be able to do it. They say it's inconceivable. And again, here is now the brother of Ghislaine Maxwell suggesting that there may be more to the story too. That's pretty interesting. Maybe she has some information on that one. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222 is the number to call. And we will take your calls when we come back. This is Rita Cosby filling in for my friend Roger Stone.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And this is Rita Cosby filling in for Roger Stone. This is interesting. Wall Street Journal now reporting, remember that 2003 birthday album where they had the birthday card that Trump sent to Jeffrey Epstein, which sounded like, kind of two guys, him making some funny comments. I didn't think there was really anything to it. Trump has already said that he knew Jeffrey Epstein. There's no doubt about it. Well, now the Wall Street Journal is saying that there were a lot of other letters in there too, of course. Letters including from former President Bill Clinton, also Wall Street billionaire Leon Black, fashion designer Vera Wang, and media executive Mort Zuckerman. And that was all according to documents per the Wall Street Journal. A spokesperson for Clinton referred the Wall Street Journal, by the way, when they called to ask about it, to a previous statement that he made where he said he had cut off ties more than a decade before that, or before Epstein was arrested in 2019. And he said that he did not know about Epstein's alleged crime. So he could have just been sending a letter or a card, just like Trump was sending a letter or a card. Also, apparently, Leon Black, Vera Wang, Mort Zuckerman declining to comment. But it clearly shows that there were a lot of people that were writing in this birthday, this 50th birthday sort of album that Ghislaine Maxwell apparently compiled for Jeffrey Epstein on his 50th birthday in 2003. So, it just goes to show that's nothing. But let's see what Ghislaine Maxwell has, because again, the new word tonight is that Attorney General Todd Blanche is going to be meeting with her for a second day. That's a biggie. When we come back, we're going to take your calls, everybody. 1-800-848-9222.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And this is Rita Cosby in for my friend Roger Stone. Well, I know so many of us are mourning the loss of the great entertainer, great wrestler, great showman. And I loved Hulk Hogan. He was such an incredible guy. I had the honor of interviewing and meeting Hulk a whole bunch of times. And he was always dynamic, always passionate, and he loved this country. And when I think of Hulk Hogan, of course, I think about him going in, 1987, WrestleMania, body slamming Ivan the Giant. I also remember him just, ripping off his shirts. He did that at the Madison Square Garden rally for President Trump. I was there at that rally. That was one of those, he lit the whole room up. When he came in, it was like, whoa, this is the show. And then, of course, at the RNC, too, as well. He really came out very passionately in support of his friend and my friend, President Donald Trump. And he came out to say, this man is a warrior. This man is a fighter, because who could forget RNC, of course. And I was there at the RNC. And again, it was electric when he came out. I mean, all these speakers were great and passionate, but when he came out, it was like, whoa, the crowd went crazy. He was such an icon and just brought so much joy, I think, to so many people. But he also came out to talk about what a warrior President Trump was after that horrible assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania. Because remember, the RNC was literally right after that. And here is Hulk Hogan, the late, great Hulk Hogan.
Last week, when they took a shot at my hero, and they tried to kill the next president of the United States. enough was enough. And I said, let Trumpomania run wild, brother. Let Trumpomania rule again. Let Trumpomania make America great again.
It was definitely Trumpomania, but it is always going to be Hulkamania. And what a great guy. I remember interviewing Hulk Hogan when I was at NBC and at Fox. And I remember talking to him right after he did his big reality show with his family. Hogan Knows Best. I had a great time talking to him and the rest of the family. And I will definitely miss the iconic, great American, great showman. Also, Hulk Hogan was somebody, when there were events for veterans, charity events for veterans. He's like, sign me up, Rita, whatever you need, sign me up. He loved the military and he loved this country. And boy, did he live large, and he's going to live large in our hearts forever. We will definitely miss the great Hulk Hogan. I know many of you have great memories of him too, and I can't wait to hear your thoughts about him tonight as well. We're also talking about everything that's happening with Ghislaine Maxwell, because as we're getting word now, there will be a second meeting now tomorrow that it went on for hours today. And Ghislaine Maxwell is going to be meeting with Todd Blanche, the Deputy Attorney General, right under Pam Bondi, again tomorrow at the U.S. Attorney's Office in Florida. And I mentioned earlier that Ghislaine Maxwell's brother has also been pretty suspicious in terms of skeptical, I should say, in terms of what really happened to Jeffrey Epstein. Did he die of suicide? Nah, he's not so sure. Listen to what Ian Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell's brother, has to say.
I believe Jeffrey Epstein killed himself.
I have to say that was my original view. I think it's entirely plausible that could have happened. However, I think the jury must be out on the manner of his death. I think the investigation was shoddy. I think it was cursory. I think the guards involved were let off pretty lightly. I think the footage we've seen of the film is not terribly conclusive. There's a flex from a CPAP machine which helps you breathe better. Why couldn't that have been used as a ligature? We don't know. And the pathologist that was brought in by the Epstein family did not consider that the injuries to Epstein's neck were conclusive of suicide, and he thought it was more likely that it was homicide.
And he's talking about Dr. Michael Baden, who I know very well. By the way, it's Dr. Michael Baden's birthday today. I just thought about that. I got to give him a call and tell him happy birthday after the show. 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. And you are listening to Rita Cosby filling in for Roger Stone. Let's go to Sheila in Ohio. Sheila, boy, oh boy, your thoughts tonight, now that we're hearing that this meeting with Todd Blanche is going to carry over into tomorrow. It sounds like she's chirping like a bird.
Hi, Rita. I'm afraid that if she is giving any information, I hope that she is protected. I don't believe Epstein killed himself. I believe it was murder, but we may never know. And also about Hulk Hogan, I was so shocked to hear about his death, and I hope he rests in peace and is happy up in heaven.
What made Hulk Hogan such a iconic, lovable brand to you? Like, is there, when he came out, I'll never forget, because I was there in the room both times when he came out and he tore off the shirt and the fireworks are coming out and the flames and the music and, the I Am American. I mean, in fact, I think we have that song too. We can maybe play it. This is sort of that iconic music when he walks out all the time. It was always this show. And Sheila, I talked about this earlier. I went with the WWE when I was at NBC. I spent a little over, I think a week it was, over there in Afghanistan with the WWE. Hulk was not on that trip, but I spent a lot of time with many of his friends. Ric Flair was on that trip, and Triple H, Big Show was on that one. I mean, so many of the big John Cena was there, Vince McMahon. But I've spent a bit of time around the wrestlers, and just so many of these are such great Americans who love this country. They were doing big shows for the military. They love giving back and helping the military. And that was something, when I think of, when I think of Hulk, I think of just his love of life. And he said he could not take it anymore, which is why he came out so passionately for President Trump. He said, I can't stand injustices. And he always really deeply loved and appreciated President Trump, but he really felt he needed to come out after what happened in Butler and how he felt the country was sort of falling apart before that. And he always stepped up when it was like military events or events about honoring this country, honoring America. I'm really shocked today. When I saw the news, I was so shocked because the last time, I saw him, he was vibrant, full of life. And ever the showman. I want to play, Sheila, a little bit of the music. This is his famous song, when he's walking out all the time. Here it is. Fight for the rights of every man. I am a real American. Fight for what's right. Fight for your life. And you can just see him coming out there with, with the boots on, the bulked up, throwing Ivan the Terrible, throwing whoever it is around in the ring. He was larger than life, right, Sheila? I mean, there was just something, there's nobody like him, really. I mean, what a character.
He was bigger than life, and my whole family just loved him. So I hope he rests in peace, and we will never forget him. I
agree. And by the way, back to your point also about Ghislaine Maxwell, I do hope you're right, that she stays safe. I am not convinced that she is indeed, I'm sure they're watching her. I feel like it's such a visible situation. But given that I have questions about Jeffrey Epstein, and you just mentioned you do too, I hope that she is well protected and careful. I think it's interesting that if she does have something important, why didn't she bring it up before? Although she has said all along she's innocent. So if indeed she is innocent, I mean, she's been accused by a number of these women. In fact, in the last trial, I think there were 4 women that came forward, and some of them said that she even participated, not only organized, but also participated. I mean, some horrible details. So they definitely pinpointed her. Maybe she has something to show otherwise. And also, what information could she have that would shed light on some who did it? I mean, if she sits there and says, Jeffrey's misunderstood and I'm misunderstood. And, we're both, the tooth fairy and, the equivalent of Mother Teresa. I don't know if anyone's going to buy that one. She's got to have something concrete. And we just heard also from Professor Dershowitz that it's got to be something of substance. You have to have something to trade. You can't just say, here's what I believe. She's going to have some physical proof evidence because, she is so vilified. From at least everything that was heard from these victims and also from the trial. So I'm always open that, people deserve a fair trial and a fair, chance, but she's got to have something extremely important that would turn things around, for them to reduce her sentence or to do something like that. Especially because she is so vilified. It has to be something of physical evidence or some information, or even if she's turning everything on him. Here's what I know. Here are the people who perpetrated crimes. And again, I say this to you guys, whether they're known or unknown. I don't care if they're known or unknown. If they're monsters, they're monsters. And if somebody did something inappropriate to, especially underage individuals and participated in human trafficking, throw the book at them. That is for sure. Those are my philosophies, guys. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Joe on line 1 on Mount Sinai. Go ahead, Joe. Your thoughts.
I believe Epstein was murdered, and I don't know what you could do I mean, who has jurisdiction over this island as far as the crimes that go on? And I know there's probably conspiracy crimes and everything else, but I believe the CIA got rid of Epstein because Epstein was going to probably start squealing, and all the leverage they had on people that they wanted leverage on would be gone.
Yeah, and by the way, there may be something to that, Joe. First of all, the island, like you said, I have to take a look and see whose jurisdiction, but because it is conspiracy and because they were flown, from New York there, or other locations, Florida too as well. Some of these flights were from all over the place, but mostly obviously from the United States. U.S. certainly has jurisdiction, because there's international combination and there's a lot of U.S. base to this. And many of the women based here, they also say a lot of the acts happened at his apartment. He has a big, big apartment. He did in New York City. He had a big one there also in Florida too as well. But your point, I agree with you. I think something suspicious definitely did happen to him. I don't know if a 3-letter agency, I wouldn't go as far as to saying they participated in doing something to him. But I do find it awfully convenient that when he had the squeeze put on him, that, there was no way he was going to skate. I mean, to me, there was no way he was going to skate. Maybe he's delusional. And I don't know Jeffrey Epstein. I didn't know him. But maybe maybe he was delusional in thought, but I don't think so. But I do wonder what information he had on certain people, because there were so many bigwigs that were coming. And some of the women were saying that he was recording things and doing other things. So there may be a lot of people who didn't want to keep him around. And I totally do not believe that he killed himself. And that's why maybe, who knows, maybe Ghislaine has some information that lends herself to that. Who knows? Maybe she was waiting for the right moment to release all this information. Some of the skeptics are saying, oh, why is she talking now? But maybe she didn't feel like she had the bargaining chip or somebody who would listen to her. Who knows? Let's see what you got. Evidence is evidence. And if it is, hard, concrete evidence, let's see what you got. Joe, what do you make of the new news, too, tonight that's coming out, that the Wall Street Journal is talking about other people who wrote these birthday cards for Jeffrey Epstein? I mean, when they came out, when the Wall Street Journal came out, they made it sound like it was some big bombshell, that Trump has, wrote this letter to Jeffrey Epstein. First of all, it didn't sound very revealing to me, for one. But now they're saying all these other people wrote, birthday cards too. I mean, to me, it's ridiculous that they made it out to be like some big scoop. And now it's a whole bunch of other people, Vera Wang, Mort Zuckerman, who used to own the New York Daily News, a great business guy, former President Bill Clinton. I mean, there's a number of names in there that wrote birthday cards too. I mean, I think that puts it in perspective, right?
Well, I worked for the New York Post, so I think that Mr. Rupert Murdoch is so jealous of Donald Trump that he actually urinates green, because he is jealous as could be. He screwed up the election in 2020 by calling or not calling a state. So
wait. You think there's like a competition? See, I don't think there's that, but I think, and there may be, by the way, there may be, like a competition, big businessmen. I wouldn't be the first that you'd hear, two big personalities and big business people, and big leaders competing against each other. On the other hand, I just want to get back to the Wall Street Journal reporting, because they did make it sound like, oh, it's this big scoop. Look. And now we're finding out that there's other people, that are other business folks, that happen to have written letters. It certainly puts it in a lot of context, which is what I thought the context was to begin with. So I think, I don't, when you have information, I think it's important to also put it in the right context. It made it sound like, oh, this is the big scoop. And now you're finding, oh, well, other people wrote if I wrote a birthday card to somebody, 10, 15 years ago, 20, 30 years ago, you don't expect it to come out here and somebody else wrote some other birthday card and it was something funny or whatever. I think that was blown totally out of proportion. And I think this new news we're hearing tonight puts it all into perspective. Joe, thank you, though, very much. Interesting conversation. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. And you're Rita Cosby, and I am filling in for Roger Stone.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Breaking news.
And this is Rita Cosby in for Roger Stone. And this is interesting. Remember, there's been a lot of problems with aviation of late. And just coming out that United Airlines had to ground its entire U.S. fleet briefly after there was a fire at a headquarters. Pretty scary stuff. Apparently, they had to issue an urgent ground stop across its entire mainline fleet. It happened tonight after a fire alarm sounded at its headquarters. Just to give you a sense of how big, United operates the world's largest fleet with more than 1,000 planes, and they were all temporarily put on hold. Apparently, the flights were not diverted, just delayed. United Express, those regional flights were not affected, but the other ones, and that's a lot of them. Boy, oh boy. 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Gerard in Long Island. Gerard, your thoughts tonight about Epstein?
How are you, Rita? Thank you so much for putting me on the call. I just want to say, I remember listening to an episode of Roger Stone where he said that Epstein's injuries were not consistent with strangling. That's one note I just wanted to make. But in addition to that, I concur with you with regard to a relationship can be, a very superficial type of thing. And it could have been that, Donald Trump may have had some interaction with him, but it wasn't anything, consistent with a long-term relationship or any kind of a real relationship. He might have interacted with him, and at some point he realized, wow, this guy's kind of bizarre, and then he removed himself from the equation. But most importantly, I think the reason why, which most people will concur, that they're going after this, and they didn't go after this test, they're just trying to put some kind of a bad onus on the president, and it's getting to be so monotonous and obnoxious now, and I don't know when it's going to stop.
Well, that's why I wonder, Gerard, that maybe this is all one big setup by the president, that he knows it's going to be nothing at the end of the day, and he's leading many in the left-stream media on the garden path. We'll see, guys. Everybody tune in. I'll be back on the Rita Cosby Show, 10 p.m. tonight.
Thanks for listening to The Stone Zone with Roger Stone. You can hear The Stone Zone with Roger Stone weeknights at 8 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode, so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?